He stopped and trembled in anticipation of her reply. She said nothing. Hermann knelt before her. If your heart has ever known the emotion of love, if you can remember its raptures, if you smiled just once at the cry of a newborn son, I beseech you, by the feelings of wife, lover, mother, everything that is sacred in life, do not refuse what I ask. Reveal your secret to me. Hello and welcome to episode 3, where we continue talking about The Queen of Spades, Pushkin's 1933 novella. Please check out my previous episodes and also take a look at the link in the description where you can read the whole story. And so Lisa received her first love letter that both excited and disturbed her. But is it a true love? Let's see. Lizaveta Ivanovna read it through. The letter contained a confession of love. It was tender, respectful, and translated word for word from a German novel. Lizaveta Ivanovna did not know German, however, and was very pleased with it. After thinking it over, Lisa decides to reject these advances and returns the letter, along with her own note, asking the young man not to address her again. Hermann, however, persists and finally wins her over, having only one goal in mind: to gain access to the old countess. Lisa is nothing but a decoy in this scheme, and we as readers realize it much earlier than her. After convincing Lisa to set up a secret date in the house, Hermann finally confronts the countess, sneaking into her room at night and begging her to share the secret of the winning 3 cards, and the countess, apparently shocked and frightened, does not respond. The countess said nothing. Hermann continued. Who are you keeping your secret for? Your grandsons? They are rich as it is. They don't even know the value of money. I am no spendthrift. I know the value of money. Your 3 cards won't be wasted on me. He stopped and trembled in anticipation of her reply. She said nothing. Hermann knelt before her. If your heart has ever known the emotion of love, if you can remember its raptures, if you smiled just once at the cry of a newborn son, I beseech you, by the feelings of wife, lover, mother, everything that is sacred in life, do not refuse what I ask. Reveal your secret to me. After all these pleadings, Hermann starts threatening the countess with a pistol, and she dies of shock. Frustrated and angry, he goes to see Lisa, revealing his true intentions, and then flees the house. In 2 days, he comes to the funeral, even though, as Pushkin points out, he feels no remorse. Though he possessed little genuine faith, he was a prey to superstition. He believed that the dead countess might exercise a pernicious influence in his life, and had nerved himself to attend her funeral and beg her forgiveness. When approaching the coffin, he suddenly thinks that the deceased gave him a mocking glance and winked an eye. Terrified, he recoils and flees home, where he drinks and contemplates on what he saw. This is the moment that precedes the scene that poses a question. Is the narrator reliable? Do we read the story through Hermann's eyes or through the eyes of some external observer? What follows provoked discussions both in Pushkin's times and later. The scene is so powerful that I want to read it to you now. It was night when he awoke. Moonlight flooded his room. He glanced at his watch. It was 2:45. Sleep having deserted him, he sat on the bed thinking over the old countess's funeral. Just then, someone outside glanced at him through the window and went away at once. Hermann paid no attention. A moment later, he heard the door of the outer room being opened. Hermann thought it must be his orderly, drunk as was his habit, returning from a nocturnal outing. But then he heard an unfamiliar step. Someone was quietly scuffling their shoes as they walked. The door opened. A woman in a white dress came in. Herman took her for his old nurse and wondered what could have brought her here at this hour. But the white woman glided right up to him, and Herman recognized the Countess. "I have come to you against my will," she said in a steady voice. "But I am commanded to gratify your request. The 3, the 7, and the ace will win for you in sequence, but with this condition, that you bet on no more than one card each day, and that you gamble no more for the rest of your life. I forgive you my death on the condition that you marry my ward, Lizaveta Ivanovna." With this, she quietly turned, proceeded to the door, and, with a scuffle of shoes, disappeared from view. Herman heard the door slam in the passage and glimpsed someone looking in at him again through the window. As we read this passage, we are struck with its clarity. Herman is distraught but lucid, and there are no indications that this is a hallucination and not a mystical apparition. Fyodor Dostoevsky, a big fan of Pushkin's art, pointed out the duality of this scene. The fantastic should come so close to the real that you must almost believe it. Pushkin, who has given us all our artistic models, achieved in the Queen of Spades the acme of the art of the fantastic. For you really believe that Herman actually saw a ghost, and you believe precisely the view of reality commensurate with such a vision. Yet at the end of the story, that is, after having read it, you do not know how to interpret it. Did Herman's vision arise from Herman's nature, or was he actually one of those who came in contact with another world, a world of evil and hostile spirits, namely Spiritism and its teaching? Now, that is art. If we look at literature during Pushkin's time, especially in the 1830s, when the Queen of Spades was written, we see two distinct tendencies. One comes from the Romantic tradition, where madness was perceived as a noble condition, allowing a person to connect to a divine world with the spirits. The most famous example is The Golden Pot by E.T.A. Hoffmann. You know Hoffmann probably from his worldly known Nutcracker. But in The Golden Pot, the protagonist Anselmus becomes insane in the eyes of the society. However, this process is also seen as an awakening from the mundane world to the poetic sphere. This novella influenced Russian romantics, and we see its traces in many works, especially Vladimir Radoevsky, whose stories I hope we discuss in another episode. Another tendency comes from a literary trend that Pushkin in many ways initiated. The insanity is seen as a disease that degrades and destroys one's personality. In the early 1830s, Pushkin had a memorable and heartbreaking experience of visiting Konstantin Batyushkov, a renowned poet of those times. Seeing his friend and mentor completely transformed by the mental disease strongly affected Pushkin, and in many ways we see the aftermath of this encounter in his later works, such as The Bronze Horseman, written in 1834, and especially his poem Insanity, published in 1833, the same year as The Queen of Spades. And here I will read it to you in Russian, but you can follow the translation on your screen, so that you can just hear the music of this poem. «Не дай мне Бог сойти с ума, нет легче повсох и с ума, нет легче труд и глад. Не то, чтоб разумом моим я дорожил, не то, чтоб с ним расстаться был не рад. Когда поставили меня на воле, как бы резво я пустился в темный лес. Я пел бы в пламенном бреду, я забывался бы в чаду нестройных чудных грез. И я бы заслушивался волн, и я глядел бы, счастья полн, в пустые небеса. И сеялен, волен был бы я, как вихрь, роющий поля, ломающий леса. Да вот беда, сойти с ума, и страшен будешь, как чума. Как раз тебя запрут, посадят на цепь дурака, и сквозь решетку, как зверка, дразнить тебя придут. А ночью слышать буду я не голос яркий соловья, не шум глухой дубров, а крик товарищей моих, да брань смотрителей ночных, да визг, да звон оков». So you can see that while the first part of this poem presents us with the romantic vision of the madness as a noble disease, the second part presents it as a disease, as just a disease which actually degrades and, destroys the personality of a person. Returning back to the scene of the apparition or hallucination, we pose ourselves a question. Is Herman indeed visited by the spirit of the Countess, or is he going mad, tortured by his guilt and his card obsession? Pushkin never answers this question. However, you can find some hints in the last pages of this wonderful story. But I'm not going to talk about it, because as I said, I'm trying not to give away everything, in case you'd like to read this story. But in any case, if we compare the original plot to Tchaikovsky's opera, we can see that the libretto is simplified and romanticized. There is genuine love between Herman and Lisa, there is a rival who wants to marry her, and the conclusion is very different and more melodramatic. In a sense, Pushkin wrote a story that was way ahead of its time, not only in the 1830s, but even in the late 19th century when it was adapted by Tchaikovsky. The coexistence of humor, drama, compassion, and opacity when it comes to a question of narrator's reliability gives us a unique blend so uncharacteristic for the early 19th century Russian literature. Next time, we will discuss another Pushkin short novella, The Shot. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed my short analysis of the Queen of Spades. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and also check out the links for the English translations of this novella. I will see you next time. Bye bye.